There are cities you visit, and there are cities that tells you a story. On one side of Africa sits Mombasa, Kenya, an ancient coastal city shaped by the Indian Ocean, Swahili culture, trade, and centuries of travelers. Thousands of kilometers away is Port Harcourt, Nigeria, a city surrounded by the Niger Delta, built around industries, commerce, culture, and the energy of one of Africa's most important oil producing nation. Two countries, two cultures, two very different histories, but both cities have something in common. The water shaped them. Today, we are traveling from Mombasa to Port Harcourt to discover what makes these two African cities beautiful and what their stories reveal about Africa itself. Mombasa doesn't feel like just another African city. It feels like a meeting point between worlds. For centuries, people arrived here by sea, traders, sellers, merchants, and travelers, connecting the eastern African coast with Arabia, Persia, India, and beyond. And you can still feel that history today. Walk through Mombasa's old town and you see architectures, markets, mosques, narrow streets, and wooden doors carrying the fingerprint of generations. Then there is this for Jesus, a powerful reminder that Mombasa was once at the center of a struggle for control of Eastern African coast. But Mombasa isn't trapped in its past. Beyond the historic streets are beaches, modern hotels, restaurants, businesses, and a city moving rapidly into the future. Mombasa has learned how to carry its history without allowing history to stop it. Now, let's travel to Nigeria. Welcome to Port Harcourt. Known for decades as the Garden City, Port Harcourt has a completely different energy. Where Mombasa feels like a city looking towards the ocean, Port Harcourt feels like a city surrounded by the enormous life of the Niger Delta. Greenery, rivers, creeks, industry, commerce, and millions of people whose lives are connected to the region. Port Harcourt grew from a colonial era port into one of Nigeria's major economic centers. And then came oil. The discovery of development of petroleum resources in Niger Delta transformed the city's economy and its importance. But Port Harcourt is more than oil. It is music, food, fashion, business, football, arts, and people with an unmistakable Nigerian energy. That's Port Harcourt. If Mombasa were a person, it would be the calm storyteller, the one who has traveled the world and has a thousand stories to tell. Port Harcourt would be the energetic entrepreneur, always moving, always building, always looking for the next opportunity. And that's what makes this comparison interesting. Mombasa's identity is deeply connected to Indian Ocean. Port Harcourt's identity is deeply connected to the Niger Delta. One grew through maritime trade, the other became a major industrial and commercial center. But both were shaped by the same force, Africa connection to the water. But cities aren't really about buildings, they are about people. In Mombasa, you will encounter the warmth of coastal Kenyan culture, where Swahili tradition blends with influences that travel across the Indian Ocean. In Port Harcourt, you experience the diversity that defines Nigeria, different ethnic groups, different languages, different traditions, but one city. And in both places, you will find something that statistics can never properly measure: African resilience, people building businesses, raising families, creating art, working long hours, and dreaming about something better. And then there is food, because if you really want to understand a city, eat where the locals eat. Mombasa cuisine tells the story of the coast. Seafood, pilwa, biryani, spices, coconut, flavors influenced by centuries of interaction. across the Indian Ocean. Port Harcourt brings a completely different experience. Bold Nigerian flavors, fresh fish, pepper soup, grilled foods, jollof rice, and the unmistakable richness of Niger Delta cuisines. Different plates, different spices, but the same African philosophy. Food isn't just something you eat, it's something you share. And this is the real African hospitality and African enthusiasm. Mombasa has an advantage that is impossible to hide: the ocean, white beaches, palm trees, sunset, tourism. It is easy to understand why people fall in love with Mombasa. But Port Harcourt's beauty is different. Its beauty is not always present on postcards. You have to look deeper, through the greenery, along the waterways, inside neighborhoods, at the markets, through the people. Port Harcourt isn't necessarily trying to impress you, it makes you discover it. And maybe that's the beauty of Africa. Not every beautiful place comes packaged for tourists. Some places have to be experienced, and Port Harcourt is one of those places. But no honest documentary can talk about beauty without talking about reality. Both cities face challenges: traffic, infrastructure pressure, environmental concerns, rapid urbanization, economic inequality, and the different questions facing many African cities. How do you grow without losing the identity that makes you special in the first place? Mombasa has to balance tourism, development, and preservation of its historic coastal identity. Port Harcourt faces the enormous challenge of developing within one of the world's most environmentally sensitive regions. These are not perfect cities, but people that exactly know what they are doing. This is why the story of Africa and the stories of people living within Africa matters. So, Mombasa or Port Harcourt, which city is more beautiful? The truth is this, that almost impossible, and this is almost impossible to answer. If you want beaches, ancient coastal history, and Swahili culture, Mombasa has the advantage. If you want Nigerian energy, industrial power, greenery, and the character of the Niger Delta, Port Harcourt brings something completely different. This isn't really a competition, because comparing these cities is like comparing two different chapters of the same book. One tells the story of Africa's relationship with the Indian Ocean. The other tells the story of Nigerian Delta and modern Nigeria. So, from the shores of the Indian Ocean to the waterway of Niger Delta, Mombasa and Port Harcourt remind us of something important. Africa is not one story, it's thousands of stories, thousands of cities, thousands of cultures, and the millions of people creating this future every single day are the true Africans. Mombasa has its history, Port Harcourt has its energy, but both have something that cannot be measured by skyscrapers, beaches, or economic statistics. They have soul. And maybe the real question isn't Mombasa or Port Harcourt. Maybe the question is, how many more beautiful African cities are still waiting for the world to discover? So, if you enjoy this journey, subscribe to Nereus vlog, because Africa has many more stories to tell, and we're just getting started. Before the tourist wakes up, before the offices open, before the traffic becomes heavy, Africa cities are already awake. In Mombasa, fishermen prepare for another day on the Indian Ocean. Shop owners open their doors, workers begin their journeys, hotels prepare for visitors, and somewhere along the coast, another ordinary day begins. Thousands of kilometers away, Port Harcourt is doing exactly the same thing. A driver starts his engine, a trader opens her shop, a worker heads towards the industrial areas, a restaurant prepares its first meal, a student begins another day of school. Different city, different country, but the same human rhythm. Wake up, work, dream, survive, build, repeat, and this is something you notice when you spend time in African cities. The skyline may change, the languages may change, The food may change, but the ambition of the people is remarkably similar. Everybody wants a better life. Everybody wants opportunity. Everybody wants their children to have more than they had. And perhaps that is the strongest connection between Mombasa and Port Harcourt. Their people are the real story. So cities have memories, and sometimes you can see those memories in their buildings. Like in Mombasa Old Town, the architecture becomes a history book. Wooden doors, narrow streets, old buildings, mosque, fortification. Every corner seems to carry a story. The city reflects centuries of interaction between Africa, Arab, Persians, Indians, and European influence. Now look at Port Harcourt. Its architecture tells a different story: colonial beginnings, industrial expansion, Nigerian urban development, modern commercial buildings, new constructions. The old city meets the new city, and this is happening across Africa. Our cities are changing faster than ever. Glass buildings are opening beside old neighborhoods. New roads are cutting through historic communities. Modern lifestyles are meeting traditional culture. And the question is becoming increasingly important. Can African cities modernize without losing their identity? Because the development is important, but so is memory. A city without history is just a collection of buildings. A city with history has soul. So, but if you really want to understand where these cities are going, don't look at the old buildings, look at the young people. Mombasa has a young generation growing up between tradition and technology. They carry Swahili culture in one hand and a smartphone in the other. In Port Harcourt, the stories is similar. Young Nigerians are creating businesses, making music, producing films, building online brands, learning technology, and finding new ways to make money. They are not waiting for someone to define Africa for them. They are defining it themselves. And this generation is connected in a way previous generation never were. A young person in Mombasa can watch what a creator in Lagos in Nigeria is doing. A young entrepreneur in Port Harcourt can build a business for customers outside Nigeria. A musician can reach an audience thousands of kilometers away without leaving the city. The internet has changed the meaning of distance, and perhaps this is the most important transformation happening in both cities. The next chapter of their stories will be written by their young people. Yes, water gave these cities life, but water can also bring challenges. Mombasa lies beside Indian Ocean. The coastal line supports tourism, fishing, transportation, and countless livelihoods. But coastal cities everywhere face environmental pressures: erosion, pollution, rapid development, climate change, and the pressure of growing populations. Port Harcourt sits within the complex environment of the Niger Delta, a region defined by rivers, wetlands, mangroves, and waterways. The environment here is incredibly valuable, but it is also under pressure. Industrial activity, urban expansion, pollution, and environmental degradation have become major concerns across part of the Niger Delta. And this creates a difficult question. How do you build cities that create jobs and opportunities while protecting the environment that makes those cities possible? There is no simple answer, but there is one thing we know: the future of Mombasa and the future of Port Harcourt are connected to the future of their waters. Protect the water and you protect the city. So tourism has a funny way of simplifying cities. You see the beach, you see the hotel, you take the photograph and you leave. But that's not a city, that's a postcard. Mombasa is much more than its beaches. Port Harcourt is much more than its oil industry. Behind every attraction are communities. Behind every road are stories. Behind every market are families. Behind every beautiful sunset are people dealing with ordinary problems. And that's why traveling through Africa requires something more than a camera. It requires curiosity. You have to ask questions, talk to people, walk the streets, eat the local food, listen to the music, and sometimes put the camera down. Because the most important story may not be building in front of you, it may be the person standing beside you. That's where the real story begins. After seeing both cities, I started asking myself a question. Different question indeed. Why do we always want to know which city is better, which country is richer, which place is more beautiful, and which city is more developed? Maybe we are asking the wrong question because Mombasa doesn't need to become Port Harcourt, and Port Harcourt doesn't need to become Mombasa. Their differences are exactly what makes them interesting. Mombasa reminds us of Africa's ancient connection to the world through the ocean. Port Harcourt reminds us of the power and complexity of modern African cities. One gives you the rhythm of the coast, the other gives you the energy of the delta. And both remind us that Africa cannot be reduced to one image. It cannot be reduced to poverty. It cannot be reduced to wildlife. It cannot be reduced to skyscrapers. Rather, it can be reduced to beaches. Africa is all it takes. Beautiful, complicated, modern, traditional, ambitious, and constantly changing. And maybe that's the story worth telling. The sun rises over Mombasa, and somewhere far away, another day begins in Port Harcourt. Two cities waking up, two countries moving forward, two completely different worlds, yet somewhere, somehow connected by same continent. And maybe that's what traveling across Africa teaches you. The further you go, the more different things become, but the further you look, the more similarities you discover, the more different things become. But the further you look, the more similarities you discover. People laugh the same way, families worry about the same thing, young people dream about the same future, and everywhere you go, people are trying to build something better. So you may not see the same thing, and you don't have to be, because Africa doesn't need one identity. It needs freedom to tell all its stories. Two beautiful cities, two powerful stories, and one incredible continent.